Welcome to Northern Kentucky Magazine on this Friday, March 19th. I am Patrick Crowley, my last Northern Kentucky Magazine. We're going through some changes here, and I just wanted to thank everybody who's been so patient with me here. Joe Zink, Dennis Rudy, Dan Williams, Nancy James in particular, Sandy McGowan. I'm not as astute in television, particularly when looking at Nancy and what approach she is, and she's always been great. And I want to thank all the viewers and all the wonderful guests we've had all the years and all the great crew members. And to celebrate, I wore Santa Claus socks today. I bet I'm the only person wearing Santa Claus socks today. Can you get these? Look at this. I don't know why I grabbed those, but I did. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time in the open this morning. We got a great show. It's jam-packed. Dave Hatter's going to be here. Appropriate that he's on my last show because he's been a good friend and has been there early on with me and talking about politics and technology. We're going to talk about his company today, Libertas. Dave is a whiz with the computers, and we're going to talk about how the FBI is using social networking and some illegal things you might be doing on your computer. All right, welcome back. Joining me now is David Hatter from Libertas Technology. He's also on Fort Wright City Council. David, how many times do you think you have been on this show?
Well, I've been off and on pretty regular since '95, so dozens, 100 times. I don't know, a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
It's kind of a sad day, really. You know?
Yeah, it really is.
A little sad talking about your last show.
No, I know, and I should have got a haircut. I got a mullet like Billy Ray Cyrus. Remember that. We're going to talk about Billy Ray later. I think Dan Williams used to hang out with him. David, let's talk about, real quick, you were talking when you used to be on with the late, great Dick Von Hain, and you have a dial-up connection.
Way back
Not
in the
anymore.
day. Yeah, you know, now I have a little bit better technology, but we'd run into all kinds of problems. We'd be on the set here talking, literally had a phone line coming from across the room plugged into my computer, and every once in a while you just lose your connection to the internet. So, you know, then usually Dick would start talking about Army buddies and things like that, and there'd be no telling what we would talk about by the end of the interview. Now, that would happen even when it did work, but when Gremlins hit, there was no telling what Dick would do.
I know. He was great.
He was great. I really missed the guy. He was a great guy.
I know. He really was. Okay, David, what are we talking about today? We were talking off camera about the FBI using social networking?
Yeah, there's a big story broke this week that the feds, FBI in particular, have been using social media to, you know, look for terrorists, look for criminal activity. And there's been a lot of stories. If you go Google it, you'll find a lot of stories of, you know, stupid criminal stories where someone like leaves the country with money and they think they're safe, and then they create a Facebook account from, like, you know, Botswana land or wherever they went to. And next thing you know, someone drops in and picks them up. So, you know, I guess it's kind of a twofold thing. You know, I think it's interesting from a privacy standpoint that they've turned to these tools, because obviously as more and more people use them. Facebook claims to have over 400 million users now. LinkedIn's got 60 million users. You know, if you think about the statistics of Facebook usage are very interesting. There was a story this past week that for the second time now, Facebook had more traffic in a month than Google did.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, 400 million people, and they won't tell you an exact number. They just say they've crossed the 400 million threshold. I mean, that's 100 million more people roughly than there are in the United States, or somewhere thereabouts. So it's pretty incredible how many people are using these tools and finding interesting ways to use them. So to me, it seems like sort of a natural transition that law enforcement would use them, not only to find criminals who are stupid and go on and broadcast their location, but also just from the standpoint of, you know, trying to stop things like child pornography and you know, solicitations and that sort of stuff. But it's kind of interesting because some of the things they're doing in my mind are kind of questionable.
Such as?
Well, you know, if you read the Facebook terms of use, you can't impersonate someone else.
Okay.
Right? Well, they're not going on there and saying, I'm Agent Mulder from the FBI or Agent Scully, right? They're like, well, I'm Joe Dokes. And then they, you know, try to infiltrate people's networks like you would in the real world, kind of, you know, undercover.
Sure.
And it's just kind of an interesting thing that they're doing with this. So I'm not necessarily against it. People just need to understand. I think it leads into a larger discussion of privacy in general in the electronic age, and you know.
And I think we all are assume and know that, particularly since 9/11, that the intelligence community has been online trying to track terrorists and conversations, and it's bled over certainly into into other things.
And I think ultimately, you know, there's pretty good evidence out there that in many cases terrorists, you know, have used these kind of electronic tools to recruit and organize and so forth. So I think it makes sense that they'd be looking for that sort of thing. I'm not sure the average American on the street, though, realizes that, you know, as an American, there's surveillance taking place domestically. And, you know, it really ultimately, in my mind, boils down to this. You need to understand that when you use these tools, you have no privacy. Even though people tend to think they do. Well, I have a friends list and only my friends can see this. Well, wrong. Because if you and I are friends, You may have a mutual friend. I post something that I think only you would see, right?
Right.
And when that happens, you decide to share it with someone else, maybe surreptitiously without me knowing.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I can't control the information once it hits you.
Sure. And you were probably going to get to the point where I'm just guessing that law enforcement and the intelligence community will go to get court orders to possibly monitor some of this like they're supposed to do when they tap a phone or listen to a phone conversation.
You know, there are organizations out there like the Center for Democracy and Technology, the Electronic Frontier Foundation that deal with, you know, electronic privacy and media and that sort of thing. And you know, those are the kind of things they're pushing. I don't know why anyone would have a problem with if you go to the judge and you get a warrant, it's no different than tapping a phone or something.
Yeah.
I think some of the concern you see expressed out there by these groups are now, this is kind of the wild, wild west. There really are no rules. And again, you know, it doesn't make sense that Agent Mulder is now Joe Dokes, friendly neighborhood, you know, shoe salesman online, befriending you, reading what you're saying. You know, it's an interesting subject.
And you do leave a footprint. There was a story out about a year or two ago, one of these sensational murders. It was a doctor whose wife disappeared while they were walking on a pier, I think, in San Francisco, and the police went into his computer and found out that he was looking up searches on how to dispose of a body and how to make a body sink, and that nailed him, and he ended up being charged or convicted.
I think most people don't realize just how much of a footprint you do actually leave. You know, as soon as you put something in electronic form and it leaves your computer, and even if it's just on your computer, once they come to your house with a warrant and take it, you know, you've left to some degree an indelible footprint that you really can't erase. So, you know, you need to think about it, and not from a crime standpoint, but like from future job standpoint, your current job. You know, you need to think about what you're saying out there, and you really got to understand you have no privacy. Privacy is a thing of the past because you can't control what I do with your information once I get it.
Now, how do you feel? Because I know from politics, you're a Republican who leans towards the libertarian side. That's what. How do you feel as an American under that?
I don't like it. Wasn't a big fan of the Patriot Act. You know, I like less government, not more. I like more privacy and more freedom and not less. You know, obviously to live in a civilized society, you have to have a certain amount of this kind of thing. You know, I don't want a terrorist cell operating at the house next door to me and no one know it. So it's sort of a balancing act. And, you know, the Fourth Amendment, it's all very tricky. You know, all of this is still being sort of played out. I don't know where it's going to go, but, you know, I guess the main thing I would say to people is you need to understand that whether it's a text message on a phone, it's an email, it's a chat message, it's something you post on Facebook, you cannot control the dissemination of that information, and you really need to think about what you're saying and how that could potentially come back in the future to harm you. Again, you get fired from your job, something you say that you wish wouldn't have shown up on Northern Kentucky Magazine is on there because someone emails it to Pat Crowley and says, hey, Pat, look at this. So, you know, people just need to understand that they are leaving a footprint, and it could last potentially forever. You know, every website you've ever visited, there's a log of that somewhere. Now, how long they keep it, who knows?
Let me ask you a question. What do you think about a grown man wearing Santa Claus socks? Now, we're going to take a break and come right back.
It's all in good fun.
With David Hatter from Libertas Technologies. And we're going to find out that you may be breaking the law on some things you do with your computer. Is that right?
Yeah, and without realizing it.
Without realizing it. We'll be right back.